Hello, everyone. Apologies for that. My still dealing with how to get this whole thing to work. But yes, apologies I couldn't make it in today. The snow has prevented me from coming and joining you. This is what it looks like outside my window at the minute. Okay, so hopefully yours looks something similar. You're hopefully wrapped up nicely away and and safe in the knowledge that you're not fighting the cold. But hopefully you'll enjoy this motivational theory video, and it'll be hopefully kind of sort of like what our lectures will be like. So I'm just going to start by sharing with you this. Okay, so the purpose of this particular lecture is to be able to understand the basic motivational assumptions related to money, as well as going a little bit further in a bit more depth to say what is the theory behind non-financial methods of motivation. So not only are we looking at money as a motivator, but other different things that could motivate us. So Taylor, who we've kind of looked at before, looked at money as both a carrot and as a stick. So the carrot, in the sense of it encourages people to do something. If you offer people money, then that'll motivate them to do something. If I was to offer you £20 to turn around in a circle, some of you would probably take it. Okay. You can also use money as a stick. So in some situations, you may say, well, if you don't do this, I'll dock your pay or something similar. So the stick is the punishment to say, if you don't do something, I will take it away. Now, Taylor, who with scientific management theory, believed that money was the main motivator. So he's saying, what would workers want? Well, higher wages every single time. If you want someone to be more productive, then you need to pay them more. So in order to do that, he suggested payment by piece rate. So like our little gift that we've got here, okay, every single piece that someone made, they'd actually be paid for it. Okay, so the advantage of that is that the harder that you work, the higher the rewards you get, because if you're putting through more items, you get better pay. The disadvantage of that is that staff actually just focus on getting through as many items as they could at the end of the day. So my great uncle used to work in the Jaguar Land Rover factory in Coventry, and he used to tell me that he had a really clever way of avoiding this piece rate, because every time if a item or a part failed quality control, it went into the bins outside. So if he was a bit short on his quota for the day to make sure that he had done enough pieces, he would simply go and collect some of those parts from outside and put them back through the line, and it would come up and show that he'd put those pieces through. Obviously, they would fail quality control again and go back through the bin. So the way that system motivates him was not actually to produce more work. It was just to come up with different ways of avoiding or abusing the scheme so that he could be paid more. So this, on top of this, Taylor's motivational method just saw people as machines with financial needs. So it didn't account for each individual as a person, what motivated them, how they would react in certain situations. It just saw that money is the only way to motivate staff. So in low skilled, boring jobs, pay probably is the most important motivator. Okay. But in highly skilled work, which comes with that higher pay, is money the only motivator? That is the real question. At a certain point, do you turn around and say, "Well, I've probably got enough money, but this job is horrible. So what motivates me to stay? What motivates me to do better?" So Taylor, for Taylor, the early factories and workplaces felt that only obligation to workers was to pay them. I didn't worry about conditions, okay, or anything like that, or being nice to the workers. It's just, it's a place of work. It's horrible. You go there, you do your thing, you get paid, you go home. Okay? So if they worked, they got paid. If they didn't work hard enough, they were simply replaced. There's this attitude that because generally it was low skill work, everyone was expendable and replaceable. So, like we've got the situation here, a bit like a Victorian workhouse. Okay, every person does their bit, and they have to work as hard as possible in order to keep their job. The tasks were often very, very menial, as in very repetitive, very boring, and generally didn't involve a lot of brain power. So there's plenty of other people to replace the current workers. So, like with our little gift here, okay, where Homer is being replaced by a chicken. And with our picture here, this is a queue for jobs. Okay, so every single person again was seen as expendable and treated as such as just another part in the machine, another cheap replaceable part to make sure that others always feared for their job and worked as hard as they could. Otherwise, they knew that they may actually lose it. Like I said before, because over time the jobs were easily learned, very simple tasks, it did genuinely mean that people were easy to replace. So, in order to get the best out of workers, Taylor recommended a combination of what we call the division of labor and specialization. Now, the division of labor is to break down a job into particular parts. So, this was particularly good for Henry Ford, who obviously Ford Motor Cars was dealing with. Okay, so your each of those parts on the car was made by an individual person. Okay, so one person would be focused on making the wheels and fitting the wheels, another person to fix the chassis, another person to put the motor in, to put the brakes in, to put the steering wheel in. And that is all they would do all day. They would do that exact same task and just go bum, 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 bum. Okay. So the specialization element is the fact that they're just doing that simple task over and over and over. So they'll become really, really quick at it and really good at what they did. So the person making the steering wheel could make it in seconds. And it was exactly the same motion every single day. However, that so on top of that, that meant that workers needed very, very little training because they could just be shown what to do and rely on repetition to make sure that the person became faster and faster and faster. So, in actual fact, it's a lot more complicated, the link between income and happiness, okay? Which is really important when we're looking at how to motivate our staff. Yes, we need to make sure that staff are paid enough in order to be able to not just exist, not just survive, but to thrive. So we're not talking about minimum wages and things like that. We're talking about offering someone a decent wage for a decent day's work. So maybe in this country, the average is about £25,000. So if you were to pay your workers about £30,000 a year, they would be able to live very, 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 very good lives. However, beyond the need for money, it's just greed. So this this need and want divide is really evident from the diagram that we see below. So as you can see, that happiness rises rises almost exponentially to begin with, and then begins to plateau off. Towards after about £50,000, the no matter how large the income rise, happiness only increases very, very slightly. Okay, so this divide is about $50,000 in the US, and in the UK it's about £25,000. So what research actually shows is that there's massive limitations to Taylor's approach to the rise of human relations perspective. The Hawthorne studies was research conducted between 1927 and 1932, and the Hawthorne studies seemed to show that studies in financial rewards had little or no effect on productivity. So it was instead working together and interest shown in the work that increased output. So basically, what that is saying is that financial rewards, so pay and bonuses and things like that, only have a very small effect on productivity. From the studies, Mayo actually concludes workers were motivated by personal satisfaction and better communication and involvement in decision making, which leads to high commitment and productivity. We're going to go into a bit more detail about what that exactly involves, but just to begin with, really, that's about taking pride in your job, knowing that you've done a good job, caring about the place that you work, and caring about the job that you do. It's about making sure that you feel wanted by your manager, feeling appreciated, and you feel that the company is actually going somewhere and you should feel like the company wants to take you on the ride with it. And that means that because you feel more involved, you're more committed to doing a good job, and therefore you'll be more productive because you'll want to work for them. So Elton Mayo and the Hawthorne experiments looked at, for example, the test of lighting. So the unexpected result stimulated a fuller study of the effects of changing physical surroundings of the worker. So initially, they were surprised at how much a dark room can really depress someone and make them less motivated. Okay, so the lighter the room became, the more effective the staff became. So, and that brought about investigations into what other physical conditions can be manipulated or changed in order to make staff work better. So, in the relay assembly test room, they selected women staff for repetitive measurable tasks, regular changes to the working time, rest breaks, and refreshments, and then asked for the views of the people. Okay, so to set the imagery out, you've got a group of women staff doing a really repetitive task that, such as creating the wheels on the car. Okay, and that's something that they can measure nice and easily, and they can check how productive that makes you. So the scientists made changes to how long they worked for, how many rest breaks they had, how much refreshment they had, and then asked for the views of the people. So the results of this, okay, led to the conclusion that that the social element is also as important as the physical element. So as we can see here, in the standard working conditions at the time, you're looking at this is the percentage of the standard output. Okay, so if we take this point as the base point, okay, you've got um, your standard situation. Okay. Oh, apologies. So apologies. So right. So we've got in this figure, you can see that we start to increase the rest breaks, and then we add a lunch break in, and then stops at different times. Okay, and then 15-minute rest plus a lunch. Okay, when you've got these 15 minutes rest plus a lunch, they actually make more than if they're working the entire way through. So it's really interesting to note that when you vary the lunch time, the break times, and adding lunch in there, okay, which you may think of as actually making sure that it's giving the workers less time to actually create things, but by introducing those mental and physical breaks, the people can be more productive in the time um, that they are working to a point where they are more productive than if they're just working the entire time, up to about 132% of standard output. So, other Hawthorne studies had a look at the bank wiring observation room where male staff on payment by results system. So, that's similar to the piece rate. So you're being paid based on the results that you can produce. How successful are you? And they produce less than they could have done, showing that the social pressures on members to comply with output levels set by the group. Okay, so if you have a payments by results system, um, and you're working in a team, you may be pressurized by particular members of the group to the point where you feel stressed out and less productive than you would have been. The other thing that you can look at is the interview program, which sort employs attitudes to work and life in general. So the interview part of the Hawthorne studies was just looking at what employees' attitudes were to work. How did they feel about work? What motivated them? What sorts of things um, were they interested in? Okay, and it showed close links between work and life outside. So supervisors should really look at the emotional needs of the employees, because if the employees don't have a good personal life, they will bring that into the office with them. So if you look after your staff, they'll be a lot more productive. Now, this second theory is by Abraham Maslow, and it's probably one of the most famous theories. Okay, and it talks about a hierarchy of needs. So you've got a base level of what we call physiological needs, a second level of safety needs, third level is love or belonging, the fourth is self esteem, and then the fifth is self actualization. I'm going to go through in a bit more detail about exactly what these involve. But as you can see here, physiological needs are the very basic needs: sleep, food, water, that sort of thing. Okay, basics to actually survive. The next level is some sort of safety or security. So knowing that your job is protected, you're not going to be sacked immediately. You're going to have some sort of shelter in order to make sure that you're safe in your environment. The next level is level belonging, relating to the fact that humans are social animals and they need friendship, family, and intimacy in order to be able to function as human beings. Okay, so when these three levels aren't being achieved, people are less productive. Okay, and these are usually the three most basic needs that an employer can provide: a social environment for people to be able to work well, safety and security of it. It's something as simple as a contract to say that you will be employed for the foreseeable future, and giving them pay that allows them to eat um, and sleep at night without worrying about financial worries. The next level is about building confidence. Okay, so treating people with respect and making sure that people don't feel intimidated, and making sure that your leadership style reflects the emotional needs of the people that you're working for. And then the highest level, okay, is about giving people a certain degree of freedom. Okay, not asking them to do things that they find morally objective. Okay, making sure that they can problem solve, they can act without prejudice, there's an acceptance of the facts, and that they they're given a task, but they're not necessarily told how to do the task. It gives them the opportunity to be spontaneous and work according to what is best for them. So these five will reflect through what these five basic needs are. Okay, so you have basic low level needs, like I was saying before, and high level needs, like this little kitten, okay, that's asking for food. So, physiological needs, you have food, clothing, and shelter. They're three of your most important things. An income that means that you can actually afford to do things, you can live, and reasonable working conditions. And that's your first level, your physiological needs. Then you've got safety needs. So having a secure environment, you're free from danger or anxiety. You're making sure that your staff aren't going to be beaten or something ridiculous like that. Okay, or intimidated in some way, threatened with the sack every 2 minutes. By having job security, no 0 hours contracts where you don't know when your next paycheck is coming from. Okay, and safe working conditions. So making sure that there aren't dangerous chemicals lying about. There aren't processes that mean people can get injured at work. And that is your second level, is safety. Then your third level, you've got your social needs. So friendship, love, and belonging, making sure that you feel like you're part and an accepted member of the team that you're working in. Making sure that you're part of the team. You're working with friendly individuals and there's opportunities for socializing. So at Aviva, where I used to work, we used to regularly have a Christmas party and events to team building events to make sure that everyone in the team felt like they belonged and we worked well together. And that is your third stage, is social needs. The next is self-esteem, like this little kid, respect. Making sure that you have your own self-respect and that's kept intact. You have respect from others, making sure that they're not prejudiced towards you and they recognize the work that you do. Having positive feedback from your manager to say that it can be something as simple as saying, "Oh, well done. You've done a good job there today. Well done." Okay, and that certain level of recognition and positive feedback can go a long way towards building relationships with people. But on top of that, there should be opportunities for promotion to recognize that someone has been working hard for a long period of time, so they deserve to be promoted. And that is your fourth level here. Okay. So your physiological is your base, safety, social, esteem. Okay. And as the higher you go up, the more productive workers should be. The last one is something called self actualization. And that is the need to fulfill one's potential. Okay, so you're looking at if you want to be a doctor, being a doctor. If you're wanting to be the CEO of a company, be the CEO of the company. Okay, it accepts that some people are never really satisfied with their job. Okay, and they always need to be better in some way. Okay, so that's the last level. Okay, and these are mainly for the most driven individuals that want to be successful in some way or form. So it's about recognizing people's potential, putting them in the jobs that they should be in, and making sure that they have the skills to do it. So any unsatisfied need is a motivator according to Maslow. Okay, so once that need is satisfied, then the higher need is more important. So once you've done physiological, okay, you need to do safety needs. Once you do safety needs, you do need to do social needs. Okay. But um, you can't actually do the self actualization needs if you haven't done the lower needs. So, for example, if you're not paying someone right, okay, then it doesn't matter how much good feedback you give them because there's not going to feel secure enough in their job to want to stay. And it's also important to recognize that although this pyramid's in place, on basic values, actually people value different things in different ways. Okay, some people would value money above all else, and that is fine. That's the case for some people, but others would actually rather have take slightly less money, but have a lot better working conditions and working conditions that allow them to thrive. So the problem with Maslow is that it doesn't recognize that actually not all needs are satisfied through work. Sometimes the workplace can't do everything for you. If your personal life is very difficult at home, there's only so much that the work can do. People place different values on different needs, okay, like we've discussed, and some rewards and work outcomes satisfy more than one need. Okay, so there could be certain aspects of work that allow you to have safety needs and social needs at the same time. Now, we've spent a lot of time talking about McGregor's Theory X and Theory Y, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But remember, Theory X is assuming that basically everyone's lazy and motivated by money and will only work if coerced by the management. And theory wise, assuming that people are motivated by a lot more factors, like we discussed with Maslow, okay, and things like that. And theory X, theory Y is a spectrum. So not everyone is absolutely lazy or absolutely glorious, okay? They're usually somewhere along the sort of spectrum. Now, Hertzberg here developed something called two-factor theory. Okay, I'm going to look into more detail about that. So, some factors in a job can provide job satisfaction, and other factors just simply reduce dissatisfaction. Okay, so one set of factors, if absent, causes dissatisfaction. These factors are concerned with the job environment and what we call extrinsic motivators. Okay, and these are called hygiene factors. So that's all to do with outside factors, things that make the job worthwhile. Like how does the environment that you're working in look? what's the job involve, and all sorts of things like that. So these are all things that make sure that the job isn't too bad to do. So this can be to do with pay and salary, making sure that you earn enough money to be able to pay your way. Job security, making sure that you feel like your job is secure and that you have a contract and that you don't feel like you're going to be sacked anytime soon. It can be do with working conditions and company policy and interpersonal relations. And they all work in terms of what job are you doing? How do people treat you? Do you feel respected at work? How do the managers and other team members act towards you? Are you working in a dirty or grimy environment? Are you safe? That sort of thing. So, if any of those things are missing, they start to make you unhappy. Okay, so hygiene factors, okay, are all things that you need to have to make sure that you don't become unhappy, but they may not actually make you more happy. The actual motivators will create satisfaction, okay, and they'll encourage you to do something. So, um, the way Hertzberg described this as what motivates me to play the piano. Okay. Well, you can either provide an environment where I want to play the piano because through fear of reprimand, okay, and I may learn the piano, but I don't want to learn it. So if I'm given the stick as such and a horrible environment, I'm not going to learn very quickly. However, if I'm given a carrot, okay, and given these motivating factors, okay, then I'm more likely to want to play the piano and I'll be productive in that and learn a lot quicker. So these motivators all come from within the person. Okay, they're very psychological. So it's all about recognizing when a person's done a job well, making sure that you give people responsibility so that they feel valued and trusted. It's about providing, to a certain extent, something that a business can't help, but it's to do with the nature of the work that is provided. So if you're working for a charity or something that you feel good about, you're more likely to enjoy your work. Okay. Is there a sense of achievement and making sure that you feel like you're actually doing a really good job? And do you feel like you're growing as an individual? Are you learning from your work? Are you becoming more intelligent? Are you learning skills? Do you feel like you're growing as a person? And these are all motivators. These are all things that not they don't just make they don't just stop people from being unhappy, but they actually motivate people to do something. They encourage them. They make them happier. So if these things are not present, they won't make you unhappy, but they may make you dissatisfied. Okay? So the more things that are present from there, they make you happier. So the problem with Hertzberg's theory is that some jobs are very difficult to make to do all those things. So if the work's very uninteresting, repetitive, or boring, like you work um, at McDonald's, okay, or you work doing simple labouring jobs like these people here, okay, you may find the job very uninteresting. It doesn't stimulate you. And there's not a lot that the managers can do about that. So the implications for management is really, really important. Okay. What you need to take away from all of these theories is that it's not just about getting squeezing the most out of your staff. Okay, if you treat staff with respect, they will come through for you. So, and there are lots of different needs that you need to satisfy. So you need to make sure that the person has those basic physical and security needs. They are being paid enough to be able to have a decent personal life and a secure enough contract that means that they can actually work without fear of being sacked at any moment. And there's an important, real rising challenge to make the job interesting. Okay. So things like job enrichment, where people do several different jobs or different tasks each day, really motivates people. So, for example, teaching is a really good example of this because no matter what you teach, you do not teach the same thing every single day. And even when you do teach the same lesson, because of the way students are, it each lesson is very, very different. So this is what motivates people is having something different, knowing that the job is different enough so that it keeps them interesting, but not so different all the time that they can't cope with it. Okay. And it's really important to recognize that not everyone is the same. Some people will be motivated by money, and that'll be the main thing. But other people will be motivated by lots of different factors. Some people will want a really friendly social environment. Other people will want a reward scheme that means that if they work hard, they get extra perks or benefits from that job. And it's also really important to recognize that not all jobs are the same. And unfortunately, some jobs are not going to be interesting. Okay, so sometimes it's about recognizing that and making the best of the situation. So, thank you for listening, everyone. I hope you found the lecture remotely interesting. Apologies um, for the problems that we had earlier with this. Okay, but I'm going to now send through the email for um, for this particular to send you the workbook for this. Okay, I'll put it online, and if you could do the questions from the workbook, that would be really, really good. Okay, but I hope you enjoyed the lecture, and I'll speak to you next week.